Right. Good evening. Welcome to the Educator Excellence Committee. We have a quorum with Representative Henderson, and so we'll get started on time here. Um, I'm going to move a couple things around so that we can save the bulk of the meeting for when Representative Johnson Law joins. Um, do some of the committee work planning with the two of us, Rep. Henderson. So, uh, the idea that Jen and the staff had that I want to run by you that I think is a good one, um, is that we spend some of the funds that we have available from the board to help contract out someone like the DC Policy Center or the Ed Research Collaborative to conduct a focus group with early educators in DC to learn more about their experiences and kind of build off of the Mary Levy studies that we've done to date um, in a more targeted way to focus on first year, and then use that along with what we've learned from previously commissioned research to move forward recommendations that we would then I would envision turn into resolutions, legislative asks, programmatic asks, etc. Right? Um, would love your take.
I like having the focus group. I think that's a great idea. Would that go parallel to discussions with WTU, with Charter Alliance, other groups at the same time, or do you want to generate something first and then go to?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, we could also ask whoever is helping us with this
Mhm.
to reach out to those groups,
Yeah,
right? Like, come up with a list of groups and individuals that we would like to get input on uh, for this.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
that only helps us. Go ahead, Ben.
I agree. I
Hey,
would
Ben.
hope that it could operate in like parallel tracks, in that um I appreciate having like, an outside expert resource to be able to conduct the focus groups and then to kind of involve um targeted groups both within the WTU and DCPS, but also within the charter sector, to be able to inform um, the learning that we would be doing on supporting first year and early year teachers.
Right. Okay. So Jen, what does it involve to do that?
Sure. I have a few more questions I think that would help me um, because, I can take this concept and sort of begin drafting like a RFP slash scope of work that we could then use to bid out in collaboration with our budget team. So I think I hear what you all are saying about perhaps having it in tandem with those discussions with other groups. Um, do you want to just do focus groups, or do you think it should be kind of broader? Um, kind of like maybe have surveys as well, other methods to get the information you need? That's my first question.
I would love their take. So, I mean, if we're
Okay.
going to ask a couple groups,
Okay.
I would love their take on. I think the two you named are great ones to start with to see if it's a fit. But if they have other recommendations for a better fit, I'll take it. The goal is to build off of the Mary Levy studies, hone in on first year, early, however we want to define that,
Hmm.
early career teachers, and learn more about what their most recent experiences in DC have been and what kind of support they would like. And um, and as part of that too, right, what are the best practices that, you know, I think there's a limitation also to only talking with early career educators about their experience because they have nothing else to compare it to, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so uh, I think thinking about how it could or should be designed is still right. But I think the main thing that I want to really stress is not to duplicate what the studies that have already been done.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. And I can even link in that SOW, like the goal is to not duplicate these studies. Here's the link. Um, and from that, I mean, you could also insert some very specific research questions that you're thinking about while also opening it up to the vendors and the groups that want to submit for this project,
Great.
um, their ideas for what it could look like. That way it'll help with the decision.
Um, I think then we can look into the details as a committee and decide where we want to take things, but I would love their take on if that is the goal, how would you go about it? Would it be focus groups? Would it be surveys? What would they propose? What about you two, Dr. Henderson and Rip Williams?
So a very important point that we don't want to just talk to the early career teachers. We do want um, information about. We need to know from other stakeholders in the process, like what would work, what problems they foresee, so on and so forth. So um, I don't know I mean, maybe it's different focus groups. One is with the teachers who are experiencing whatever supports they do or do not have now, and then other outreach to administrators who maybe have tried things, or particularly in the charter sector, we may also have uh, leaders who have tried things, are doing things, um, and could help shape our understanding of what might work best.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Alistair said. I think that um, I'm definitely open to what form it takes, and I don't know have the best answers with that. So I think whether when we're doing the RFP or the scope of work, like soliciting advice based on like what questions we want and how we're trying to do something new that builds on the previous work, and just getting clear as to like what questions we're answering, because there is some complexity here. So I appreciate both, Robert, Alistair, both of you understanding that there is value in soliciting input and feedback from veteran teachers or other or principals or other roles to help guide this. Like nothing happens in a vacuum in a school. um, and I also don't have all the experts and answers in terms of the research design of that. I think we just need to be clear when we're submitting the proposal that like this is a piece that we want to both support teacher practice and teacher growth, and with the hope of helping to minimize teacher burnout and teachers leaving the classroom. And that's really the context here, is like this is not just about student academic achievement, even though that matters a lot, right? It's about making sure that we have teachers who are supported and effective, but then also we know by other research, so linking maybe another study that shows that teachers who have support to become more effective end up staying in the classroom. And I think part of what we've learned from the Mary Levy work is that there are gaps in that support piece.
Okay. Jen, do you have enough to get the conversations with the potential partners started?
Yeah, I will. What I'll do is when we get back from Thanksgiving, draft something based on what you all just said, get your feedback, and then we can, depending on the budget team capacity, we should be able to get it out and start hearing from uh, folks who are interested in working with us on this.
Great. So while
Alistair,
we
can I add one more thing with that, just to, in case it's relevant? I don't want to throw us off track, but I do just want us to be really mindful of like how different our sectors are. And so I think it's important to the degree that we have capacity or that the outside entity has capacity to help us also identify like what are the biggest barriers or limitate constraints for supporting early year teachers as they're conducting whatever form it takes. And so those constraints are going to look different if we're talking about DCPS or if we're talking about, a lot of ways that charters organize themselves, right? So just being very mindful as to the fact that we have multiple sectors in our public education system.
yeah. Did you what I heard Jen too is like to think up to have get some help to think operationally, not just theoretically, right?
Yes,
Like what are
absolutely.
the operational constraints to
Hmm.
implement, which I don't think are as much a part of Mary's work for like
Yeah,
customized to the DC context of now.
right.
Um, uh, so for the next meeting, could we also note, in addition to kind of an update on where that stands, for the three of us to talk about what pieces of the work we'd like to start scheduling and taking on in the new year to start having some of those other conversations, how much of those we take separately, together, where that overlaps with what this other group is doing too would look sloppy if we're asking the same questions, right? So I think want to start thinking about parallel pathing that at our next meeting in the new year. A quick scheduling update. I talked with Jen about earlier today that it doesn't, I don't think, given where we are, it makes a ton of sense to have a December meeting. Um, but please chime in if you disagree and you think we should. Rep Williams?
Yeah, I'm on board with all of that. And Jen, as you're coming across questions, or Alistair, as we're just considering how to move this work forward, not just because I'm a teacher, but also because I think this is critically important work. Like I am certainly open for homework and for us to kind of help. So if there are people that we could have conversations with, or if there are additional like things that could support a productive January meeting, I'm certainly open to that. Just because I know a lot of the work gets done in between meetings too. Um, so I don't know exactly what is needed in between now and getting the RFP out and hearing how that goes. But if there are other things that come up intermittently, if we do not meet in December, maybe we just commit to staying on top of email and figuring that out together.
Sounds good. Welcome, Rep Johnson Law. Um, I Thanks for joining us and thanks for sharing the draft with us.
Mhm.
Um, I don't expect that any of you saw the email I sent just shortly before this meeting with some of my questions. I don't think we have time to go through each of them. What I would love to spend some time on in this meeting so that we can keep it short into what needs to be discussed, and then we can move the rest async is a chance to just kind of think through some of the more macro level questions
Mhm.
involved and get on the same page of what we'd like to do with this. And then I
Mhm.
think that would shape how I would like to follow up with additional questions over email and see where Rep Henderson and VP Williams have additional questions as well. So um, I don't think I I know that Rep Henderson and VP Williams have done their homework, so I don't think we need to overview the resolution itself, but rather
Mm.
I think what would be helpful is hearing from you um, uh, what your hope would be that it happens with the resolution once the SBOE passes it,
Mhm.
and who are the key stakeholders we need to
Mhm.
leverage it to do something and to do what?
Yeah, Representative Chang, thank you. I did see your email. I was actually like when you guys were texting me, I was actually like in the middle of answering like some of the questions just to give a little bit more context about just the background of what I was thinking. So just basically, all of this kind of started with conversations with one of the DCPS teachers, a principal, a couple of charter folks. I talked with Empower Ed, the WTU, and somebody from the Alliance about this, like this is like over the last 10 months of the year, and just about like, okay, how can we do special education better? And something that, a theme that I heard was, well, I think, we need to do better with like Child Find. We need to do better with best practices, meaning like, okay, all teachers, we're not asking them to be special education experts, but at least have a sense of like, okay, if a child is suspected to have a disability, like what do we do? If I have a child that has a disability in my class, I'm not just putting it on the SPED team, but maybe there are certain things that I can do. And so it was just a conversation around, okay, we're not asking everybody to be experts. We know it's a lot with special education training, but like, what can we do better? And is there a way for teachers to do like peer-to-peer modeling? Basically saying that, okay, this is something that has to be ongoing. This isn't like, okay, you take a course in special education, you take like a professional development, not a course, I'm sorry, a professional development course online, like I think a lot of the trainings do, and then you just move on, you say you've done it, and it's like a check off. No, it's an iterative process, it's a continuous process. And so basically that's how this was birthed. I have asked the WTU. I talked to Sam. I have talked to Dominique from Empower Ed. I talked to Tammy and a couple of folks from other charters to see if they would even come to a committee meeting to talk to us about this and to see like, okay, this is what we're thinking. Like, what are you all thinking? How can we be helpful? The goal of this is I think it's a little much to say mandated training because I know there are different legalities between charters and between DCPS, but this is still an issue because IDEA is still mandated. So I was trying to be really careful with language, which is why you see professional development for special education best practices, like things that all teachers can use, and understanding the process. For kids with disabilities and also too like some of the
Yeah.
best practices can actually like best practice meaning like think about some students on their IEP have extra time like to do their work. That could be something that's built in maybe for all students, like maybe students again who are struggling, like maybe they need extra time, maybe they need, that's just an example of what I'm saying. But again, all in all, I was hoping that we could get some experts to come to the committee, look at the resolution, talk with us about it. Yes, it passes, but also for it to get to council to be like, okay, we really have to figure out how we can do better when it comes to implementation. I saw one of your questions about how do we make sure that we're telling people that this is instructional and not compliance. This instructional piece will help with the compliance piece because one of the things that folks are struggling with, like I said, is child find. So that means getting somebody through this special education process. The special education process does not start with the special education teacher. It starts in the general education classroom. So a teacher who is not a special education expert or the SPED teacher needs to have the basic understanding of what this process is, what they need to do in their classroom in the interim while this child is getting evaluated, for them to be able to go through the process. That is something that has been documented and found that we need to work on. So
Yeah,
does that, I'm trying to like bring in your examples and your questions,
I appreciate that.
explanation of all in one. So I hope this is helpful. If this is like
Yeah,
going around the rosy, just tell me to stop.
thank you. I think it's helpful context. My question, which you touched on, was what we
Mhm.
do with it. So your idea, what I heard you say is you would like council to take it and legislate something. Is that the ultimate goal?
That would be a very, very nice goal because I think that shows that the district is trying to take a step into fixing a problem that we all know we have. It's not a secret that there are different special education challenges that we face, and this is just a step towards that. We're not saying it's like mandated training, but at least developing something to be able to help all of our teachers. So that way it's not just on special education teachers. Special education students are all of our students, so it should be on um, all of us. I did mention in the paperwork in the paperwork that the document that I gave that Aussie has like this special education institute that they have, but when I was looking at it, it is something that comes around yearly and it's optional. Like so people like don't have to do it. People may not necessarily know about it. And it's basically for folks who are already in special education. This is meant to be something where yes, it's focusing on special education, but it's bringing in people, bringing in general education teachers to be able for them to be able to have the resources and the tools and the support. Does that make sense?
Mm,
You can't just put special education on special education teachers.
yeah,
That's part of it. The
yeah.
other part are teachers who are teaching, who are dealing with, interacting with, instruction, teaching, who are not special education teachers, but still interact, teach, and help special education students.
I think there's a lot in the details that we need to read up on and understand as a committee.
Hmm.
If we could still zoom out, Rep. Johnson Law, I think that my question is what options um, we have after the resolution is passed. One of them is council legislates, it sounds like requirements for general ed educators to at least know how to do child find, right?
Hmm.
What are some other options you've considered that would also move the needle, whether that's programmatic or policy?
Like Magic Wand if I had the power to do it.
Mhm.
Honestly, think of like a think tank to where like DCPS and the charters would be able to have like different programs to be able to go into the schools to be able to help the teachers do this, but I don't think that would be humanly possible. It would be nice if OSSI could do more of this work. I don't know if they can with the gen ed teachers. So like if they're gonna have the special education institute, like invite, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe have it more, not just once a year, to have some type of like think tank program where it's a tool, it's a resource. I'm thinking of like tools and resources that people and an intersection agency where both DCPS and charters can tap into to be able to get support, and resources with special education.
Okay. And I think I see your hand, Rep. Williams. One thought here. Just I um I think it's important for us as we move this forward to be really clear on what the ask is and where it goes from resolution onwards, so that we prepare the resolution properly for that outcome. Um, and I actually, if my committee colleagues are open to it, I mean, having a separately scheduled panel um, on this, so that at least selfishly for me, I can understand more about the kind of what's happening in other contexts and nuances. I'd be super interested. Um,
Yeah, like a roundtable.
at the risk of so I think I would love to keep this at a higher level so that we're all on the same page enough to be able to do this async.
Mhm,
and have a exchange with you over email. With,
mhm.
I mean, my list of questions, as you saw, were quite long.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm going. You should
thank
get
you.
it by the end of tonight. I'm working through each of your questions so I can send it back to you and the committee. Because I
So
figured
Rep.
maybe the
Williams
committee might have similar questions too.
and Henderson, are there things that would help frame what we then need to follow up with online as we get into the weeds?
Yeah, I think so I'll say a couple things. One, Representative Johnson Law, like I fully am supportive of this. I think that um, you know, I've benefited, and I understand like there's a mix of theory and practice here. Like as a general education teacher, right at the beginning of my career, like I didn't have all the tools in my toolbox to be able to support every child. And I happen to luckily be at schools like Two Rivers and Capital City that take special education seriously, and like that, we're able to provide that type of professional development. And I do have some ideas about how this could work well from like a practitioner lens. I think Representative Chang, to your point, is like, what do we do with this? I think we need to first kind of take before we can even get to what does it look to like what happens after the resolution, and what does it take to really move the needle with serving more students in special populations better. I think we need to like look at what the data is now so that we can best figure out, not just from a compliance standpoint, but from a like impact standpoint, where we are to go. So I think we need to ask kind of like Aussie some questions um around how they measure response to intervention as one thing. I think we need to ask Aussie questions around what requirements for special education trainer are optional, and just kind of take stock and audit like what is available, and then what they track, because I'm not even sure what we kind of track at this point for general educators to
Yeah.
to best serve students with special needs, like. And so I think, if like, to me, I want to kind of suss that out and get a clearer picture first, still with the goal of like, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, I think a roundtable could help inform this work. But I feel like we need to kind of get a clear picture as to what is the DMA doing with regards to training for for general educators for meeting students' needs in
Mhm.
special populations, and then what is Aussie doing, and then we can kind of look at that and figure out what the gaps are and what we need to advocate for.
Great. So, um, that that makes sense to me. Are you proposing that what would the format you'd recommend be to have that conversation with Aussie?
Good question. Um, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. I mean, I don't know if it's another conversation with Dr. Jones. Like to me, it's honestly figuring out like if she's the point person that we need to talk to, or who in the deputy mayor's office we need to talk to. But I think it could be a small kind of just meeting where we ask a couple questions to have them kind of figure out the information, and then have a meeting, or just have them send over things for us to review, um, and then go from there. But I do think we need to kind of take to really learn specifically how they're gathering information on this issue so that we can know what can be better done.
Yep.
Yep. I like that, Representative Williams, because the other thing I was thinking was I'm always using Representative Chang as a model, right? Like if you legislate something and you're thinking about, okay, how can we get this out, even if it's like some type of like pilot funding program where there's money set aside to be able to go in to be able to help the teachers. But again, I think that data that you're talking about could inform, okay, where is the gap? And if something does need to be funded, maybe it could go towards that specific thing. So I really love that. And again, Representative Chang, I am kind of using your model on literacy and like what you did there as kind of a guiding light as to thinking through like real solutions and real time.
So, Jen, what I heard, and then I would love your take on what the staff can do to help move this forward next is one roundtable with uh or just a range of experts who can tell us what's going on in other contexts, and then another format of bringing Aussie in to give us, as Ben said, take stock and audit what's already happening and what's being tracked. I think those are the two pieces that it would be nice to have um, uh, a shared foundation of understanding on for us to be able to really move this forward together in the best way possible. Um, did you hear anything else, Jen, that the staff or the committee needs to do?
That makes sense to me. There is also the monthly leadership meeting with between the state board president, vice president, and Dr. Mitchell coming up, I think the second week of December. So I would also suggest
Well,
well,
how do we make
like
that pitch to leadership?
I can ask to put it on the agenda. So we can
exactly.
put it on the agenda, and yeah, that's a great reminder, Jen. And I'm happy to bring it up to Dr. Mitchell as an advocate and as a representative of the committee to figure out how we can best work together on that.
Yeah, on the second piece of taking stock and audit of what's happening currently.
Great.
And then for part one, I think what would be helpful from the committee, I know you have named some groups, um, but just coming up with who all you would like to involve in that roundtable, and then I can support with outreach and scheduling as needed. Um, and we can go from there.
Okay. Thanks. I first, Rep. Johnson Law, would you start us off with an email on your recommendations of who we should talk to as a committee? And then we can build it from there. Great. Um,
Oh yeah, I
and then
just put it in the chat actually. Sorry. I just put like a couple of people like Advocates for Justice and Education, CLC, they're the Children's Law Center. I was thinking of legal folks because of child find, because I know this is recorded and I'm not trying to say this out loud because I don't know if we're supposed to talk about it, but I'm thinking about that report. Remember that report that we talked about that was like that was done last December, and like some of those things.
I just say it, LaJoy. I don't know. I don't.
I mean, because I'm not, it's weird out here, y'all. That
Civil Rights
the
Commission.
Department of Education, I don't even know if they have it, we have one anymore. But anyway, the Department of Education, like they did this report back in December, like of 2024. And one of the things that I'm talking about, child find, is in that report. And so legally, I was thinking, do you need a legal person to explain why this is an issue and why and how it relates back to what I'm talking about, which is why I was suggesting legal organizations that deal with special education. I'm always thinking about the Sped Hub, but of course, like the Washington Teachers Union, I'm thinking of Sam. I always butcher Sam's last name, so I'm just gonna
Yeah,
say Sam.
Bertocci or Page.
Yeah, I
But I
always say
was
B, Sam B. I'm always butchering her name, Representative Williams. Always. I'm thinking of Empower Ed, someone from the Alliance because I'm thinking about the
okay.
charter perspective. Maybe even to have like if there's like a special education teacher or a general education teacher or an expert that we could just bring in. But these is just a starting point.
Okay. My ask to the committee would be to build off of that over email and share any suggestions to Jen. The um the the main thing for me is, and whether this is separate or together, is Aussie. I think even just like a solo session with just Aussie would be really helpful to answer the kinds of questions that Ben asked. Is my take. Um, as committee members know, like to keep these meetings to the things that we need to discuss, so that we can actually uh, get on the same page and then move the work to async where we can, um, and keep these meetings short. The I think the way that I would propose we do this is we schedule them around our normally scheduled meetings for 30 minutes, and then just tack on a panel at the end for 30 minutes so that and we've really thought through in advance what kinds of things we would like to ask
Hmm.
the folks who are joining us, and we can still keep our get our work done as a committee in the first half as well. Um, or actually, even better if it's flipped so that the panelists aren't waiting for us for any reason. Um, would be my proposal. So I think my ask would be share specific questions on the resolution with Rep. Johnson Law, share feedback on who we should bring and invite to the table and in how many different sessions, and over email. Rep. Williams?
Yeah, no, I echo that. I agree with all that. I appreciate you helping us manage time, Representative Chang. I just want to make sure while we have Representative Johnson Law here to
Yep,
ask one quick
please.
question. Am I understanding correctly that the focus of this resolution is um ensuring that all teachers have the skills and like the tools to be able to serve all students, particularly students in special populations or who need special education services. Is that accurate?
Yes, specifically on special education services.
Right. Okay. Because I think with that piece, like it's very situated in a practitioner's mindset. So like not as a representative, but as a teacher, I have a lot of ideas with that, and a lot of the organizations that are mentioned also get involved in special education when those things aren't met. And so it's kind of like and I do think the legal parts are super important, but I'd want us to kind of first by centering teachers and as to what training they're getting or not getting, and what's been effective and what's been ineffective to best support students in with special needs, so that we can then move forward from that. And I think some of those organizations are helpful for sure, like AJE in particular. But like the Sped Hub, like a lot of people get access to the Sped Hub after they've already not gotten what they need at their schools, you know. And I want us to kind of figure out how do we focus this on in a classroom or in a school first.
I echo
Uh,
that. Yeah. So Jen, for our panel, if Rep. Henderson also agrees, would love to hone in on the operational side. Roundtable.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just put it in there because there's an intersectionality that's happening, but that also is not happening. And
Hmm.
so when it is not done in practitioner, it is now escalated to a legal level.
Hmm.
And then when it's escalated to a legal level, it's now said, okay, we need to do this for compliance, da 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 da. And then sometimes it gets down in the classroom, but sometimes it doesn't. And so it's more it's I get what you're saying, that
Hmm.
we have to start this in the classroom. It's just also saying that, hey, like, this is why it's an issue and why it gets to a point like when we don't do it, this is why
Yeah.
it
Rep.
gets
Johnson, some of those things actually sound to me like they've been written. Part of the reason why I think it's important for us to bring in practitioners is they haven't written their experiences, and we need to ask them some questions in the here and now. If you have anything for us to read that talk on some of the more like legal side and more right side of things, I think we'd be interested. Anything else, Rep. Henderson, before we wrap?
I was just going to say, and I'm happy to do this myself. I'm curious. Representative Johnson Law, you shared that there are a few states that are doing this, and I'm sure that there are other either district or school level examples where they do this. So I think looking for scholarship on impact where it's been in practice would be a powerful part. Like conceptually, it makes sense to me. I
Hmm.
think it would like intuitively, it just that makes sense. I think our case becomes more powerful if we can show, how it has has worked in other places. Um, so I'm happy to do that digging myself. I'm ready to do that.
Well, you are a trained researcher, I hear. So,
He
uh,
is the best.
would be if the staff does have time to help pull up some of and answer some of these questions. Taylor, I know you're here and appreciate everything you do for us. I think that uh, some of this, what is happening in other districts, what are the legal nuances that we need to understand, um, are pieces that I think we can learn by reading. And then the roundtable would love to hone in on what Ben had named around what's happening in DC now and what are the experiences of practitioners today.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll name, and I know you're trying to close this out, is just I think that is Representative Johnson Law still with us or no?
It looks like she dropped, and I don't know if that was intentional or something happened with her connection.
Maybe she's back.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Welcome back. Um, is I think I'm excited about this, and I like these next steps, and I think a district level analysis as opposed to a state level analysis is going to be particularly important because if we talk about making sure that all students with special needs get what they need, like DCPS or any one of the charter schools is going to be the one like kind of implementing it, you know? And like, and yes, it should have support from OSSI or support from like a state level agency, but like actually making sure that like a lot of this happens, I think is going to be done at an LEA level. So, you know, I'm excited to kind of learn what states are doing, but also what districts are doing effectively to help us move things forward with this. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Any other last remarks before I think that's we've got plenty of homework and next steps here. Before we go get into that piece of the work async. Okay. Um, Thank you, Rep. Johnson Law, for moving this forward. I think you will be an honorary member of this committee for several months to come.
I'm
Know that
excited.
our top priority, though, will still be to be supporting first year early educators. And
Mhm.
so I don't think this is like you said, it's all connected and intersectional. So this is certainly a piece of that. But
Mhm.
I think as a committee, this is something that I want to make sure we're focused on doing that piece all the way and also doing this resolution right.
I appreciate that. And I actually thought about that when I was looking at this and about your priorities. And I think this is something that will also be really helpful for like our early educators as they're coming into like these different spaces to make sure that they have these best practices. Because these practices also, you can use this for all students.
Yep.
Like not the special education process in child find, but like some of the things that we build in can actually be used for all students. So they can have those tools early.
And to the team, thank you for looking for a research partner and getting us their recommendations for how to go about accomplishing the goals that I think Rep. Williams named most clearly at the beginning of this call. And wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we will reconvene as a committee in January.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye
Happy
bye you guys.
Thanksgiving all.
Thanks.